All right, guys, welcome back. Today's day two of starting a new business, testing really a new business, and generating sales within 30 days. Yesterday, I showed you a little bit about the research process, and I realized teaching is a lot more difficult than I thought it was. So shout out to all the teachers that are actually good teachers. Your job is way harder than I thought it was. So today, one thing that I want to do, well, yesterday I noticed myself kind of like speaking a lot and trying to like jam information down, jam all the ideas and information that was in my head to you guys. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that might have been more difficult to understand than anything. So today, what I want to do is slow it down a little bit, give you guys the big idea, show you what I was working on, and yeah, just kind of like take a little bit easier so that it's hopefully easier to understand. But today's going to be really fun because yesterday for me, what I had to work on, which was building the first ad, was actually way more difficult than I thought because of a few reasons. So you're going to see some of the challenges that I was going through and how I'm trying to overcome them. I definitely haven't overcome them yet, but it's a good thing for you to see because if it was all perfect, then I don't know. I feel like sometimes that's too good of a scenario to be true. Today is going to be something where you actually see really like what happens behind the scenes when things aren't as easy as you might think they are. So with that being said, let's jump into it. Okay, so day two, let me just open this up a little bit. Open that up a little bit. I don't know if you guys want to see me or the screen, but I can't even open it, so I guess you can't see me anyway. All right, anyway, so the whole point of yesterday, right, was to start to formulate how I'm going to put together these ads and coming up with big ideas that I'm going to lead with, right? So this was a mental note for myself, just so that I'm making sure you guys can understand what I'm saying. But the first thing was just going through all of the research, making sure that, and that's really, where is that? Was that here? Oh, that was here. Yeah. On this page, right? This is kind of what I showed you guys yesterday. Just making sure with fresh eyes that I kind of understand what's going on. The thing that I really wanted to focus on more than anything is this, right? The fact that there's this like general message and there's this general like time period for where this person lives in the treatment process, right? So specifically, I think I showed you guys this picture. I believe it was this one. Yeah. So like again, these are people that they need help, but they're not new to this pain, right? They're already experiencing pain for a while, and the timeline, like if I gave this to someone that just started feeling pain, it's way too aggressive. They'll never go for it. And if I share this with someone who has who has already had a total knee replacement and they're feeling better, the odds of them doing this, there's no reason because they don't have any pain anymore. Their problem solved. So really, I'm looking for people somewhere in this area that have gone or going to PT, they're taking steroid shots or they're not working and they're looking for something else, right? So basically, again, this summarizes it perfectly. This is for people who have tried the usual treatments without adequate relief. So that was just reviewing it. Now, today, right, or like, yeah, I wrote this for myself. This is literally how I would do this or how I do this when I'm doing this on my own for anything. I started off by I want to know like what my goal was for the day, right? For that time period, because I only have like 2 to 3 hours max to allocate towards this per day. So I have to be like super intentional with my time. So this is kind of me talking aloud to myself, but I have an idea for who I'm trying to target, right? It's people who actively have pain from osteoarthritis in their knee. It's not, I wrote this down, but this is not really, let me cross that out. It's not really, how do I cross? Oh, crap. Stop doing this. What's happening? Okay, just ignore that. That's not really what I'm looking for though. And this is kind of what I just mentioned, people who have already tried to use the usual treatments. Now, that's the message that we need to focus on. Again, that's what I'm talking about in my own head. these are just some like ideas of hooks, like things that I can, if you think about the ads, right? This is harder to follow, I understand, because it's not as visual, but this is the research process. And I know it could be a little bit more boring, but once you get this right, everything else is way easier because it's just plug and play at that point, right? So the message that I'm really trying to hone in on, and I don't know what's going to work, and that's what we're going to test in the ads, are things like this, right? Is your knee pain still bad after trying all the usual treatments? If I say something like that, or any of those other statements, my assumption is that people that I'm trying to target are going to resonate with that, right? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? Again, that's what we have to test, but those are my assumptions. So that's pretty much, I'll let you guys kind of read that, but I don't want to go over every little detail. This is kind of answering that question, what's going to capture the attention? To be honest with you guys, I was really struggling, right? Like, I don't know, like, I'm not the demographic, right? I'm not in the 50 to 90 years old range. I don't have knee pain. So for me to relate, I have to really like work to put my mind in their shoes, which is what I've been trying to do, right? I found something that was interesting. Again, I'm just kind of like showing you through my thought process, but then I'm gonna clear all of this up in a second. Um, I read something that this procedure literally got FDA breakthrough designation. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that could be something catchy for people um, to read. But I think all in all, like this is me trying to put ideas down on paper, and I'm actively struggling, right? Like I'm struggling to get something down that makes sense. But the whole point is like that first one, it's usually not going to be your best idea. So just get things down and think about like what you think might work, even if it totally sucks, right? Even if it totally sucks, that's totally fine, right? Um, this is that process. So like I think this is a pretty bad ad. It sounds kind of ridiculous. It might even be on the edge of spammy, but like I don't know what else to think, right? So I'm just trying to get ideas down on paper. After I was struggling with this for a little bit, I jumped over to here and I was like, okay, like I need to simplify this for myself because people are not going to read, like if people start to read like something that seems spammy, I felt like I was going to lose them, right? So in this situation, on this page, what I did was like, all right, let me just like write down some really simple things that make sense or should make sense. And like, even if it's not like the best, it's a clear message, right? So let me take a second. I want to show you guys something real quick. And like, just kind of how this will, once you see this, it'll be more visual and it'll all make a little bit more sense. But ultimately, one of the things that I am trying to do throughout this process is match up audience, offer, and message, right? So why is this important? So the first thing in research, right, the part that started all of this was the audience, right? And with that audience, what we started to do was this, right? I went on Reddit. I just started reading all the Reddits and started to understand like who is this for? What are they dealing with? What are the problems? What's like kind of that journey? Like this is how I got this. This was all from Reddit. So I'm better understanding the audience, which is one of the most important parts of all this, right? Once I got the audience down, what I'm trying to do right now is get the message down, right? And that's what you see over here, right? I'm not saying it's a good message right now, but that's the second part of this. It's the second part that I'm trying to nail. The last part of it is, I'll talk about the offer in a second, but the last part of it is getting the offer down where you are basically giving the ask. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. You're giving the ask, right? So the offer would be, for example, hey, find out if there's a doctor near you that performs this treatment, right? Now, let me just talk through this for a second so you better understand exactly how this works. So think about it this way. If you get the audience right, and then you know who you're talking to, right? It's like the most important thing. And the message is how you talk to them. Okay. So if you find the right audience, if you know who you're talking to and you speak to them the right way, then that message is going to resonate. The offer is what you want them to act on, right? So you need all three to work because, for example, if you get the audience right and you get the message right, right, then you have the right people who are resonating with what you have to do. But if your offer is book a surgery today and they're not ready for that offer, they're not going to act the way that you want them to act, right? So that's an example where you only get 2 of the 3 correct, right? But likewise, if you get the message correct and you get a great offer, let's just say the offer was you'll get free treatment for a year. I'm not saying that's even viable, but it's a great offer, right? Like you get free treatment from one of the top doctors for a year. If you get that right, then people are going to swarm swarm towards that no matter what, right? But if you whoops. So basically you have to get all 3 of them kind of in line. That's really the main point here. And right now we're focusing on audience. Oh shit. Right now we're focusing on audience and message, and the offer is going to come last. I'll talk about that in a second. So, all right, let's recap for a sec and like just take a breather here. So the first thing that we did was review all the research with fresh eyes, right? So I kind of know who I'm talking to. That's like my number 1 objective. Number 2 is I started to write out what I'm trying to accomplish for the day, which is in this case, getting the message down, or at least an initial message down. I was struggling with the message, right? Here's my first attempts at it. So I started my second attempt, which was something that was just really simple, right? Something that would hopefully just, even if it's not great, would make sense. So I'll talk about this and let me go through this now. So do you have this problem? This problem would be knee pain. Click here to learn more. Imagine that on like Facebook or Google Ads or whatever, right? It's just like, do you have this thing? If you do, click this ad. That's the whole point of that first part. The second part of it would be like the actual website, right? So the website is kind of what, like, imagine like, how do I describe it? It's like, damn, visually, this is harder than I thought it would be to like share. But if you had a website, let me just show you an example, actually. You know what? I think it's here. Nope. Okay, so the reason I'm showing you this is to give it to be more visual. Before I make anything online, I always work in Google Docs. And the reason why I work in Google Docs first is because great design, believe it or not, is not going to save you. Our purpose is not to make the most beautiful ad possible. Right now, our purpose is to nail the message, okay? So the reason why I started in Google Docs is because this is the message, right? This is the message I'm trying to craft. Once this is really like, once I feel comfortable with something that's like, okay, I can put this out there and I think it'll like be a valuable test, eventually it will turn into this, right? This is an old ad that I had made from before, but the point is this started the same way as this did, right? I'm jumping ahead in the process because I want you guys to visually understand what I'm doing here, right? This ad before it was a picture, it had pictures and design, and again, it's not perfectly designed, but before it looked like this, it looked like that Google Doc. And the whole point was to get the words properly, to get the story right, to get these 3 things right. That's the purpose of this. So I know who my audience is. I'm trying to craft the message, and now I need to craft, and then the last part is the offer, right? So as I'm writing this down, I was still struggling. So I ended up calling the person that that introduced this idea to me and was like, hey, listen, have you talked to any patients? Because I want to know, like, when a doctor is recommending this to for the patient, what does that conversation look like? Because ultimately, the best message is going to resonate or mimic the same conversation the doctor has with the patient when the doctor is recommending this procedure, right? So unfortunately, he hadn't talked to any doctors, so I had to just like continue making things up. But he did give me an idea, which was this, right? So one of the questions that I asked was, okay, look, like we're making this third-party website, which is basically like a concierge service for the doctor. How do we know that the patient's going to trust us, right? How do we know that the patient's going to see all this and be like, hey, like, yeah, like I'm all in. I don't know who you guys are, but like, let's do a procedure, right? That was my worry. So he's like, look, like, you know, one thing that we can do is we don't have to do everything over the ad. Like in the ad, you can set it up so that instead of, and this goes back to the offer, right? Instead of, I'll write this down a little bit so you guys can see this, but instead of saying, right, like, you know, get surgery, or even, which is kind of like the highest level of it, you could say like book appointment. So if you think about this, right, this is kind of like an ask spectrum, right? If you ask someone right off the bat to get a surgery, that's a huge ask. The odds are they're going to say no. That's a bad offer, okay? If you ask them to book an appointment, it's a little bit easier, but again, they don't know who you are. They don't necessarily trust you yet. Like it's a little bit high of an ask, right? So if you get the audience right and you get the message right, but you tell them to book an appointment, they still might not listen, right? But if the call to action is, hey, talk to the doctor, you're not booking an appointment. It's a very easy ask. Like, hey, look, here's what we have. This is how it's going to help you. That's the whole point of the message. And the offer is, if you're interested in learning more, talk to a doctor. Like, hopefully you can see it's a lot easier. If you ask someone that, they're much more inclined to say yes. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the yes, right? So, um, that's kind of like the last part of this, right? Which is, okay, I put something that's a little bit more simple. I didn't ever actually talk through this. I'll kind of talk you through it. But if you were to go on the website, right, this is kind of mimicking this now, right? The same structure. This is the first thing that they would see, which is right over here. And then there's like a little bit of text. And then there's a little bit, there's like these sections basically. So I'm basically saying, high-tech procedure, blah, 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 covered by all insurance. This is the main problem. Um, it's not new, which is like, I'm trying to gain them. I don't want them to think that like this is the newest thing and like they're going to be the first person to try it out. So I want them to know it's been around for 10 years, but because it was expensive, it wasn't popular. But now that it's covered by insurance, people are doing it more often. It's very simple, right? It's specifically for their problem. And then like I'm ruling out anybody because I don't want people that are not qualified. It's like a very subtle ruling out. Again, I'm not saying this is perfect, but this is version 1.0. And I want to share this with you guys because this is how it starts. It starts like this and it gets better. Like actually, it starts like this, right? Which is like total dog shit, right? But it gets better as you start to do things. So just keep writing things out and trying to nail, again, those three things in order, right? It'll make it a lot easier. Separate it out. Spend time getting the audience down, then get the message down, then get the offer down. If you have an idea for any one of those three, right? Just write it down. Write it down, and then you have that, you can save it for later, you know? Um, and then the last part is the call to action, right? So that's that last part. I still wasn't in love with this, so I ended up just taking a little break, and I'm gonna show you guys this tomorrow, but let me see where I'm at here. I'll just let me stop sharing for a second. So I'll show you guys this upside down. No, it's not. It's just my writing is so bad. So basically, Look, I'm a big fan of writing my ads on paper because, again, when the message is really good, when the message resonates, the ad is probably going to work. Design is not going to save a good message, right? Or a bad, sorry, good design is not going to save a bad message. So when you write it down on paper, you are forced to make sure that the message is good, okay? So everything that I just showed you guys has been in my mind, and I took maybe like an hour of a break, and I was like, okay, let me just like make this super simple and let me write down a new ad. So now think about it. The first ad, again, I'm trying to like walk you guys through this process, right? To show you that it's not a perfect process and it's actually pretty messy, but it becomes more and more clear as time goes, right? I started off with this and like some bogus ideas. I graduated to this. I learned a little bit more about how to do the offer, right? And then now, which is the last part of this, is I have this message here, which is essentially a more refined version of, I keep sharing and unsharing my screen, but it's basically a more refined version of this. And the part that it has that's different than everything else, one more screen stop time. The beginning is pretty much the same, but the end has this offer, right? And I'll just read it to you because I know it's hard to actually see on screen, but the offer basically says, oh my God, you can, so it's hard for me to read this. That's how bad my handwriting is. You can speak with the doctor directly if you're interested in learning more. You can speak with the, learning more. I guess I said it twice, but you can speak with the doctor directly and explore this treatment option. I guess it's like two ways of saying the same thing, right? But basically, hey, look, here's this thing that we have. Here's how it's going to help you. Here's how it's so much better. Here's how it's not expensive for you, like all the benefits. And then if you're interested, you can actually speak with the doctor directly and learn more about if this is something that is going to work for you or not. That's my offer, right? That's what I'm trying to tell them that they can do. Where is share screen? Right? That is this last part that I'm kind of demonstrating, right? So that's kind of, I'll show you guys this tomorrow and I'm gonna actually start building it out. Like tomorrow, just so you can see this, is I'm gonna start picking out the right tools to create everything that I need to create so you can start to see this. And I'm gonna build out the first ads. But to quickly recap everything that we've talked about, again, I know this is a little bit harder I'm gonna do my best to make this easier to follow, but I know that the research part is a little bit more difficult to follow because it's not visual, right? It's like a lot of ideas and it's a lot of words on paper, and it's not visual, so it's almost like boring. Like that's how I feel sharing this, right? So if you're still watching this, I appreciate you. But to recap, this is kind of the process that we've gone through. Number one is we spent some time doing audience research. That was really all about day one, right? That was all of this, understanding the audience, okay? Then yesterday, I spent time working on the message. That's this, and then eventually this, right? And then I also got a little bit of the offer, right? Well, the offer was that last piece right over here. So far, I have basically the beginnings of I call it like, it's like an ad trifecta, right? I have the beginnings of my audience, I have the beginnings of my message, and I have the beginnings of my offer. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to take all of that and start to turn it into like a real ad. So that's what you guys are going to see tomorrow. Like I said, I'm trying my best to make this as simple as possible. So if you're still following along, I appreciate it. But if you need any clarifications on anything, or need me to like go deeper or more simple, or you want me to go back and talk more about anything, just let me know and I'm more than happy to do it. But yeah, that's the video for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.